Good morning, Grace Community Chapel family. Excellent to be here with you today. Taking a look at Job chapter 40, and I'm just going to alter my screen a little bit. There you go. That way we don't have all our electrical outlets and stuff like that there. Anyways, so we're taking a look at Job chapter 40, and what I want to look at today is the Lord's response to Job. So we started looking at that on Friday of last week. And the Lord is responding to Job. He's responding specifically to Job's requests and also the statements of one of Job's friends. And so the Lord just has gone on and described really part of of what he has said to him in 39, and now we're going to be looking at what he's going to say to him in chapter 40. And so this is a response to Job's request to plead his case before the Lord. So we're going to take a look at Job chapter 40 and then part of 41. So let's read on. The Lord said to Job, "Shall a fault finder contend with the Almighty? He who argues with God, let him answer it." Then Job answered the Lord and said, "Behold, I am of small account. What shall I answer to you? I lay my hand on my mouth. I have spoken once, and I will not answer twice, but I will proceed no further." Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, "Dress for action like a man, and I will question you and make it known, and you will make it known to me. When did you even put me in the wrong? Will you condemn me that you may be in the right? Have you an arm like God? Can you thunder with a voice like his? Adorn yourself with majesty and dignity. Clothe yourself with glory and splendor. Pour out the overflowings of your anger and look on everyone who is proud and abase him. Look on everyone who is proud and bring him low, and tread on the wicked where they stand. Hide them all in their dust together. Bind their faces in the world below. And then I will also acknowledge to you that your own right hand can save you. Behold Behemoth, which I have made along with you. He eats grass like an ox. Behold the strength of his loins and the power of the muscles of his belly. We're going to pause because he goes on and describes this creature and talks about the majesty of this creature. Then he goes on in chapter 41. Can you draw out the Leviathan with a fishhook, or press down his tongue with a cord? Can you put a rope around his nose and pierce his jaw with a hook? Will he make many pleas to you? Will he speak with you soft words? Will he make a covenant with you? Will you make him for you your servant forever? Will you play with him as a bird? Or will you put him on a leash for your girls? Will traders bargain over him? Will they divide him up among the merchants? Can you fill his skin with harpoons or his head with fishing spears? Lay your hands on him. Remember the battle, and you will not do it again. And he goes on and continues to describe this creature. Now, I think what's interesting, a lot of people have made a lot of account of these two creatures. And what I think the purpose of this, though, let's draw back for a second. I don't think this is the purpose of God declaring in the scriptures that look, dinosaurs exist and here's what they look like. I don't think that's the purpose of the text. I think certainly we can make some accusations and some observations regarding these two creatures, and some of the things that are said about them are pretty significant. But the point being is that God demonstrates two created beings. And these created beings are animal in nature. And God demonstrates that these two creatures are beyond Job's ability to control. These two creatures are so strong and so large and so powerful that Job has to bend the knee to them. That they are greater than he. And if the God who created these two creatures, if Job is trying to interact with him, and Job can't even manage the creatures that God has created, how in the world can Job come against God? How can he lay his case before God? And that's the point that the Lord begins with. So let's talk a little bit right in the beginning. The Lord starts off, and after there's been some statements made, God turns to Job and he says, "Shall a fault finder contend with the Almighty?" And this is in a sense that Job is a fault finder. He's trying to figure out where God is wrong in his interactions with Job. And so the Lord has said, look, because Job keeps referring to himself, I'm blameless, I'm blameless. What God is doing against me is it's not just, it's not just. And so God kind of looks to him and says, look, you're being a fault finder. Do you want to contend with me? Do you want to contend with the Almighty? You wanted the opportunity to address me. Well, here I am. Here I am. He who argues with God, let him answer it. You want to be able to address me in person. You want to be able to plead your case before me. Well, welcome, Job. Here is the trial. Here is me. Go ahead, address me. And what's interesting is that Job's response in verse 3, he answers the Lord and said, behold, I am of small account. What shall I answer you? I lay my hand on my mouth. I have spoken once, and I will not answer. Twice, but I will proceed no further. His point being is that you have said something to me, and I responded, and he's like, I'm not going to respond again. I know where I am. I lay my hand over my mouth because I have no excuse, nothing to say. There is no contention I could possibly make against you. And so God then in verse 6, he answers Job out of a whirlwind. Now this is the whirlwind that came up. We saw that in chapter 38 and 39. There's just this tornado of sorts that God is speaking out of to Job. And he starts by saying, dress for action like a man. Gird up your loins. He said this before in chapter 39. And he says, I will question you and you will make it known to me. And this is the same thing he said before. And before he was asking questions regarding the world, the things that God alone controls and knows. And Job recognized in that he has nothing to say. But now God says, verse 8, will you even put me in the wrong? Will you condemn me that you may be in the right? In Job's interactions with his friends, Job, although remained blameless, he did start coming to the perspective of holding his blamelessness before himself so strongly that it almost accused God of being unjust, which is what his friends were frustrated by. His friends were frustrated because it seemed as though Job was saying that God was unjust. And in this sense, God is saying, better off to be silent in a sense. Don't condemn me, that you might be in the right. Job began to kind of probably in his heart shift towards, I know I'm right, I know I've done right, and God must be in the wrong. And so verse 9, he says, have you an arm like God? Can you thunder with a voice like his? How are you in comparison to me? And so verse 10, he declares, he's like, adorn yourself with majesty and dignity. Clothe yourself with glory and splendor. Let me see you in your most brilliant amazingness that you have. Let me just see you in everything that you can muster. That holiness, that righteousness, that glory that you have. Let me see it in everything. Pour out the overflowings of your anger and look on everyone who is proud and abase him. Job, actually, you know what? Even beyond that, more than just your glory and your splendor, how about you humble every single created person and thing and demonstrate your ability to humble those things. Verse 12, look on everyone who is proud and bring him low. Tread down on the wicked where they stand. Job, if you are like me to contend like me, then how about you act like me? How about you look on all of the proud people, bring them low by your might and your power and your glory and your majesty, and tread them down. He says, hide them all in the dust together and bind their faces in the world below. This is an element here. I'm not quite sure exactly what they mean by that. I think the idea is that you bring them into complete subjection to yourself. And look what God says, verse 14, then I will also acknowledge to you that your own right hand can save you. He says, once you've brought everything in creation, every person in creation, and everything in creation low, then I will acknowledge that your own right hand can save you. But unless you accomplish that by your own glory, splendor, majesty, and dignity, and by your own anger, then we have no place to acknowledge. I have no place to acknowledge in your own right hand. And so that's where God gives these two analogies, the behemoth and the leviathan. He gives two examples of creatures that Job must be aware of. And he says, look, these two are creatures that you're going to have to bring low. You're going to have to, by your clothing yourself with glory and splendor, majesty and dignity, bring under your control. And Job must know these creatures well enough to know that, like verse 19, we didn't read. He's the first of the works of God. Let him who made him bring near his sword. This is the idea. Go ahead and control it. Control him. Behold, if a river is turbulent, verse 23, he's not frightened. He's confident through the Jordan rushes against his mouth. So there's this element to which, this creature is so big that these rivers, no problem. He just drinks them up, right? And so if that's the case, what hope does Job have if he can't humble this creature? And then he goes the same thing with Leviathan. I like verse 3 where he makes the point, will he make many pleas to you? Will you speak with you with soft words? Now keep in mind, I don't think, and some people make this interpretation, I think God is being hypothetical here in his description. He's not necessarily saying that this creature can speak. Okay, I know some people have made that argument. I don't believe that. But the point of this whole section is, Job, how about you bring everything in subjection to yourself? And in your attempt to bring Leviathan out with a fishhook, press on his tongue with a cord, right? Just, stop talking, stop doing what you're doing, don't do what you're doing. Is he going to plead with you? Is he going to speak to you in soft words? Is he going to try to make a covenant with you? Is he going to try to, because you're so powerful, so majestic, so amazing that this creature will do anything within his power to get out from underneath your right hand? And the reality is, no, no, you can't. You have no control over this creature. This creature is so powerful, Job, that people fear it. People fear it. Now, what it is, some people have made statements of Leviathan being an alligator. Some people have made the statement that it's not an alligator, it's something more. It's something more intense, like some sort of dinosaur type creature, like a water sea monster type. Some have even argued that it's a dragon. We don't know. The word Leviathan obviously has been used in culture, but it's been used because it's in this text. So it's not used in reference in other texts necessarily in the same way, so we can't really get a good indication of what it is. It's all up to the interpreter to try to make that judgment. Same thing with Behemoth. Again, it's an interpreter. Answers in Genesis provides a couple great examples of what these things might be. At the same time, we have to recognize from the text, we don't know. But the point is that Job cannot control these creatures. He does not have an arm like God, and he cannot thunder with a voice like God's. So he cannot be acknowledged that his own right hand can save him. And so for that, he who argues with God should answer. And the reality is, as Job says earlier in chapter 40, we're going to see again tomorrow in 42, I am of small account. What shall I say to you? I lay my hand on my mouth. I've spoken once and I will not answer twice, but I will proceed no further. Beloved, we need to have a fear of God. We need to understand that he is the creator of all things that we understand, and that he is far and above and beyond it. And if we encounter the Lord of glory in all of his majesty, we are unmade. That there is nothing, we recognize that we are then just but dust. So be careful to not raise your hand against a God. Just because we as Christians become bold in our approach before him because of the grace and the mercy and the love that he has for us, and the fact that Christ has sacrificed his life to give us a place and a way of approaching the throne, do not use that acceptance, that mercy, and that grace as a way of raising your hand up to God and considering him an equal, because he is not an equal. So that's what I have for you today in Job chapter 40 and 41. Look forward to reading Job chapter 42 with you tomorrow. God bless you all. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I'd love to see you guys tonight if you're able to make it to our Wednesday night Bible study. We'll be doing Ephesians chapter 3 into chapter 4. God bless.